In the last episode, we made use of alternate steel recipes to maximize the amount of products that we can produce here in this facility. However, that means we're now waiting on concrete to turn the facility on, and we're going to need a metric ton of the stuff, requiring at least 9,000 concrete per minute to run. And of course, the best way to maximize concrete production is with the wet concrete alt. But there's an issue. We have a water problem. We need to transport water from the coast to the top of this cliff in the middle of the desert. Thankfully, we have a few options available to us. We can pump water through pipes, which is fine for 1 or 2 pipes, but given we're going to need to transport 12,500 water for this build, we're likely going to trigger some pipe bugs, likely resulting in hours of fixing. We could also use liquid freight trains, but these are inefficient due to their max capacity. And we have the option of water towers that break the laws of physics, which we'll probably talk about in a future video. But there is an alternative option available to us, and that's packaging water at the bottom of the facility, followed by transporting it along conveyors to the top before unpackaging it, followed by sending the empty canisters back to the bottom. So in today's Let's Play, I'm going to fix the water problem so that we can turn 15,000 limestone into 10,000 concrete. And all of that starts by us setting up our water packager blueprint. And for that, we're going to need to set up a little spot for our build, which I thought would be perfect down here in the estuary. We can bring the water in from just outside the little gateway here. We should probably keep it all in line with the build above us, because we're probably going to have to use this section here for transportation of resources anyway. So the first thing that we're going to do is lay out some foundations for the build, and then we will start looking at setting up the packages and how many packages we're actually going to need for this build. So all of this is where we're going to be hopefully placing our packages, and we're going to need 10,000 concrete. So if we take our 10,000 concrete, divide that by 80, that's going to leave us with 125 refineries, which 125 times 100 is 12,500 water per minute, and that equates to 208. Goodness me. Well, to be fair, that isn't too bad. If we were to have, what, 5, we could fit 10 packages in a blueprint. I mean, we could do more, but I think 10's about right. And that would mean we'd have to have 20 plus an extra one that would be underclocked. Yeah, because 10 would be 600 and we need 12,500. So one of them would be 500 water, but to be fair, we don't need to worry too much about underclocking for that. So when it comes to the blueprint that we're going to be building, the first thing that we want to do is to make sure that we have some kind of framed supports. And the reason for this is I do want these builds to be, as we've mentioned previously with the other designs, industrial in feel. It also means that if we run these on a second level, we're going to see these supports, because obviously the first set are going to be sunk under here. So we're going to use these. And now that our foundations are done, the next thing that we need to do is to grab smart splitters. So we're just going to place them here. And we want to make sure that the setup has the overflow on the middle and then any either side. This just means that the packages either side's buffers will fill up first before everything flows across to the next one. Now we're ready for our packages, and we're going to want to make sure that all of these are packaged water. We're going to have 10 of these, as I mentioned, just to keep it nice and simple for us. It means that we'll have a total of 20 of these blueprints, and we're also going to make sure that these all feed into the same line. The next thing that we want to do is just to make sure that we have our mergers set up, and of course we will decorate this as well in a moment. If you're not interested in decorating, the only thing that you need to worry about apart from power would be your pipe setup. So that's what's bringing the water into this build. So we're going to run this just a across the center here. And from here, this build is pretty much ready to go. However, we're going to beautify this now. Also, one thing I should mention, if you are using Mark II pipes, use Mark II pipes across the whole build. Otherwise, you're going to find that you may come across some pipe bugs, which we do not want. Next thing we're going to do is just to add some color. I think that's a bit dark. Do we have any other blues? I'm not sure about that. I like it, but it is a touch too pale for my liking. Well, let's run with it for now. Next thing that we're going to do in regards to this is just set up some pillars. And with the industrial side in mind, we're just going to nudge these either side each of the outputs. From here, we're going to run these all the way across. Oh yeah, that fits perfectly. Then we'll put some kind of roofing. Now the idea is that these can be just individual modules, so we don't need to worry about necessarily roofing these. These can just be like almost outside warehouse buildings where water's being filled up. Next, let's grab ourselves some framed floors, and all we're going to do is bring this up. So let's run this all the way along, then add a wall along the outside, just a little section to border it. And then from here we are going to have a walkway just here all the way along on both sides. Now we have two last things to do. I'm going to grab some metal beams and we're just going to run these. Now this is just a little touch of extra detailing, and I think it goes quite a long way to break off the monotony of the same pillars. Also make sure that all of these are fed power, and of course it wouldn't be complete without some form of lighting. And here we are with the build finally done. So I'm pretty happy with all of this. We did add just some signs all along. So we've got the A, B, C, D, E for each of the levels. And then at the end, we've also added just a little section for the pipe, which, thinking about it, I didn't actually need to do. But anyway, with this out of the way, we can delete it and start building. And we're going to start along this section. We need to have, I don't think we're going to get 10 here, so we're going to need to do 5. And so we can just cut out these little sections. And from here, with a little bit of luck, we can just nudge these across. And at the same time, we'll nudge them down so they line up perfectly with the foundations that we've already got. The other thing that I want to do is, I guess, finding we have enough room, which I think we do, we can place these on a second level along. And as long as the foliage isn't cutting through the lower foundation, I'll be happy with that. We're just going to run them all the way across there. And then we're going to have to do the same over here as well. You know what? I am pretty happy with how this is coming along. The only problem is that I would like to have the other section on this side mirroring that. But if we want to mirror it, we need to start over here, and that means it's going to cut into this section. So instead, I think what we will do is run it from here. Yeah, I think that's going to be the best bet. We do need to, though, ensure that we have enough room for the pipe bus. If we were to start here, we'd have 4, 8, 12, 16. That would give us 20, and then we have space for a single pipeline along there as well. So let's run with that, and that means we will start our other section, I guess along here. We're going to have the pipes all along here. It'll nicely unfold outwards and tear up. The only other issue if we're placing these blueprints above is we're going to need some way of stopping the sloshing from all the pipes. But we'll worry about that when we get to it. For now, I'm just going to fill out this area, and then we can get started on the pipe laying. Well, well, well. That has turned out much better than I intended. Honestly, I'm really happy with how this is coming about. The next thing that we need to do is to get started with our water extractors, and we're going to need 600 per line. So what we can do is overclock every single extractor to 250%, and that would give us 300 water per extractor. And that would be really useful because that means it's just 2 extractors per pipeline. So the trick with this is if you have a foundation under the surface, we're going to be able to snap the water extractor rather than have the free placement, and then add our pipeline junction. And from here, we can connect these up. And here you go, we've got 300 per minute. And then we're just going to bring this up to the next line. I don't know, maybe from here. Let's just make sure that it is a 90-degree turn. And then that will run across all the way over to there. And the only thing we need to do is repeat this 20 blooming times. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it on video, but I absolutely hate piping. We're actually getting there. This is about half. Is it half? Or wait, so that's, yeah, we're on the 11th and 12th setup now. One thing I will say though, I am terrible at doing piping, or at least have been, but this is looking really clean. I'm actually a little bit excited to see how it looks once finished. And there we are, our 21 pipes worth of extractors finally placed, which means we can start bringing in the water to our factory and talk about sloshing. Now, for those of you who don't know, there is an issue with sloshing in pipes in Satisfactory, and this happens across all pipes, but it's particularly noticeable along long stretches of pipes along the same height. And so what will happen is you will have water enter one side and then exit the other, but it won't fill up fully. And so water will hit the end of the line and then come back sloshing, and that throws off the logistics in pipes. Now this is fine for a build like this where everything's on one level. It shouldn't be much of an issue because it's not that big of a line. But when you start adding in different heights, like a second level, what can happen is the water ends up flowing back down the pipe once it hits the end. And then you're dealing with head lift, but also the sloshing that comes with that. And that is what we want to avoid with the second level here and, well, here. But don't worry, I have a solution. And to be fair, it's not like I've made up anything special. This is a really simple solution and something that you should always add in to your builds as kind of a backup. And what we're going to do here, we've got these pipes running. We're going to take this up several floors. We're going to grab our pumps and we're just going to place these all the way across. And the plan is to go slightly higher than we need to, so that we're forcing the sloshing to happen in the second section rather than back down the pipe. So the way that we do this, we'd bring the pipe all the way up and then have some sort of buffer, and then we would run this down. And so any sloshing, obviously we're not going to use this pipe, but any sloshing would happen in this section. So it would slosh down into the pipe and slosh back, and it wouldn't head back up to here, because we still have the pressure of the water heading into the buffer and then exiting out. We're going to run, I guess, 4 across here, providing they're all aligned. And we're going to do the same for some more. We'll bring them through this level in sets of 2. Now I'm going to set some more buffers just behind this. And as long as it's set up to work, it'll be fine. We'll actually come back and decorate all of this at the end. With this now having the buffers set up, we're going to bring the pipes across to each of the sections. You can see we've already done it here, working out how to run these lines. And so we're just going to bring these down. And the plan will be to run these directly along in a straight line up until the end. And then we have this section here, which will also go down. So we can just run this across. But for this to work, I think what we're going to have to do is to build maybe a foundation across. And then we're going to want the pipe to come up like so. Wonderful. And then above all of this, I won't worry too much about these because we're going to have our conveyors run along this section. This is what's going to bring the empty canisters to us. And above all of this, we're going to have our walkways connecting to each of these. And then we're also going to need to work out a way to set up a walkway for these as well. But I'm going to do that all the way along here. And then afterwards, we'll continue this. But yeah, let's nudge it into that section and then we'll run that across just so that it maintains that kind of industrial look that we're going for. The other thing, we need to start running along here all of our belts because this is going to be where we're running the packaged water lines along to our bus, which will head all the way up to there. Let's run all of these across to the... I think we're going to have a problem. We've got 1, 2, 3, 5 belts along this segment. I'm going to have to, I think, take the resources up in order to get them to the end. Oh well, we'll see. We'll see how it looks once it's done. It'll be over here that hopefully we'll be able to set up our bus. So this is where all of the packaged water will go up to the next floor. And at the same time, we need to consider where the unpackaged water will be coming. We need the unpackaged to come along this section, which might mean... What's under here? Yes, okay. So we'll have packaged water that side and unpackaged coming underneath the here and running along a bus over to this area. And that way we're also using the underside of our steel plant for something. We don't just have to cover it up. In fact, it would be great to have facilities under all of our builds. Hey ho, that's a story for another day. We need to get on with all of this. Most of the time, I like it when I'm right, but not this time. I was absolutely right with the issue being that we had not enough room. And the same goes for down here as well. So everything on this side is going to be super cramped, which I really dislike. The next thing that I need to do is bring the rest of the lines across to here. We're going to run them all up to that section. And then once that's done, we can start looking at the next level. We're going to run all of these along this side, and then underneath we'll do the same, just so that everything is run neatly. But I do need to remember to make sure that they're all in order. So this is the first one, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on and so forth. I've no idea what we're going to do for the other side. That's going to be a real pain in the backside given the lack of space that we have. Yeah, it is just not going to work on this side. We can do it on that side fine, but here we're going to need to bring the resources up somehow. If we could nudge it across, we could run it across the section here. A little bit too tight. Although, what if we did something like placing a merger here? It's going to be the same spot, isn't it? No, that's it. Oh, that is wonderful. That works perfectly. So what we will do is we will have to do something like that, and then each section will go up through the underside along to, say, here and across to this point. Oh, it's a lot of logistics. So my plan at this point, I mean, we're still doing all the blooming conveyors, but the plan is going to be from here. I think we will have an elevator which brings the resources down. So the empty canisters will run across this section to here where they will go down, which we'll do in a few moments. No, and of course we also have to worry about these lines. The plan with the under section, it currently is running parallel to this, just to the side. This is going to run all the way under where that elevator is going to be, where it will come up around about here. And of course the other thing is we're going to have to do another elevator Not just the one from the empty canisters at the top, but we're going to have to do another one around here so that we can run all of the other conveyors along here to get to this point. And it's done! Well, kind of. We've done the first section, so this is where we're going to build our water. Well, I say the water unpackages are going to be up here, but we're going to have to go across the dreaded gas rocks. But don't worry, we've got some Nobelisks for them. The other thing, we've now got our little elevator area ready. So we're going to set that up in a moment, and we'll get the line across to the other end before we do the gas rocks, actually. The other thing that I've done, if we look down, you can see we've now got walkways connecting the lower and the top sections together, which I think look pretty darn cool. And thanks to that, all of this is coming together quite nicely, how it slopes into the center. Obviously, it's not quite done yet, but for now, once we know that it's working, we're probably going to leave this so that we can focus on the next bit, which is the unpackages. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do with this elevator is we're going to bring... Oh, it's meant to be. And I think with it being water, we should definitely set it up as a kind of blue. It might need to be a bit darker blue than that, thinking about it. Yeah, that's looking a bit better. And then from here, I'm going to just run these all the way across. And then once this is done, we can start on the conveyor bus behind us. With the elevator now done, we're going to start this section. So all we're going to do is run these all the way to the end here. And the plan, I hope this works. We're just going to zoom this all the way to the end. And we'll hopefully be able to bring all of our output of empty canisters around here. But of course, before we can sort out the actual line, we're going to have to sort out the gas or fart rocks just around the corner, which is where our input of packaged water is going to go up along. So let's get rid of all of the gas here. And while we're at it, maybe those friggin' spiders down there. And there we go. Although, we might need another pass. The next thing for us to do is we're going to just run this all the way across along here. And I think this section here, where it opens up a bit, would be the perfect location for the lift heading up there. So this area is where we're going to take the water up. And then we're going to also need, in contrast, a section where we can bring the empty canisters down. So we need to, first of all, before we worry about that, finish doing all of the conveyor belts so that they're going to the right location. We'll try and run it down here. And we need to do the same with the belts, which are just under there right now. They need to come out somewhere over here. So we're going to need to do a load more concreting over this section as well. The empty canister line is ready. And on the opposite side, as you can see, we've solidified the canal where the resources are going to go. This is the empty canister section, and then the full canisters we're going to have to run along here. One thing I am a little bit peeved about is I was trying to do a lovely curved belt all the way around to this section. Because of the curves, they get gradually longer and longer to a point where you can't place them any further. I wish there was some way that when it's a curved piece, you could go any length in line. Because we've got this weird little triangle or boomerang shape that I need to work out something to do with now. Anyway, skipping that, we are going to start setting up our elevator up to the cliffside, which is here where we're going to be doing our water unpackaging. So the plan at this point would be to bring it up to, yeah, I guess up here. We can fill this section in with something, maybe half foundation. We're going to have all those canisters come down this section. From here, I will make sure that all of these have little floor holes. We won't actually use them. Oh, actually, we do need to use them. So there's a problem here, and that is we want to display the materials coming down, those empty canisters. And the only way we can pick that is if we place conveyor poles and snap from that into here. You see how this allows us to have the display. I wonder why I can do that. It will allow me to do it there. Yeah, that's correct. How odd. Anyway, we're going to do this for all of these to make sure that they're going the right direction. And we'll run these all the way along the canal. We'll probably do something decorative here. We also want, while we're at it, some kind of, I don't know how to describe it, like a cliffside support reaching outwards, almost like arms jutting out. And we could do this either side. I'm going to work on getting this sorted, and then once I'm happy with this, we'll get planning the next section of the build. All right, we are here. We've expanded on this. We've added a little bit of lighting. I'm trying not to add too much at the moment, and we are now ready for our unpackages. So for this one, we're going to keep it super simple. We're just going to grab, I think, our 2-meter foundations. We're going to set up a normal unpackager line just really quickly. And I think, let me just check before we do this. I think it's 10 again. I think it's the same maths as the packaged water, which was 60 per minute. Unpackaged water. Oh, 120. So all we need to do is, once again, 2 lines of 10 packages, but we'll have 2 of these lines go to 1 set of packages. Okay, so we have our basic setup here. This is just a manifold with our packages going up through the middle and dispersed along the water packages. There are 2 lines because they're each being fed by 2 sets of conveyors, and then we have the water coming along on either side to their own dedicated line, and the empty canisters will be returning the way that they've come. The next thing that we need to do is a little bit of decoration for this, just to make it feel a bit more like one of our designs rather than just a basic setup. And we're going to start off with some frames along the outside, which we will eventually run some signs across. We can also place along here frame walls, so we still have that apex entrance for the conveyors to go along, and glass foundations across the top. From here we can add ourselves a wall, and I'm going to lower this by half a foundation. And let's make this blue so it's in line with our packages. Furthermore, we'll add ourselves some industrial railings facing inwards. Along the outside, we will also have some walls. We can go with the grey walls this time. We're just bordering all of this. I'm not sure whether we're going to run these together with the other blueprints, like next to one another, or if we're going to separate them. It would be quite nice if we separate them to have little corridors. And the next thing that I want is thinking we could go with maybe the wires. And yeah, we'll repeat this again. Perhaps add a touch of signage just to light it up. And then run our power along this section. So the great thing about doing it this way is we can now, we find the right spot. Of course, it's not letting us. Here we go. We can place our power along the front here so that it's along this beam. And that will mean that hopefully, fingers crossed, the power will look quite clean along this facility. And here we are with the unpackages complete. You can see we've added just the lighting along the diagonal down on those pieces and just wired everything up. But that is all set up now. So for this, we're going to want to make sure that we have this as the center. This is where we're going to run our packages. So all we need to do is grab the blueprint, and actually we're going to want to flip this around. And so it's along here that we'll be having our logistics for the conveyors. The pipes will be on the inside section. And as such, we're also going to have another one just across from this. We'll have the water go through. Also, it'd be really nice for us to run all of these resources around. Yeah. And so each one of our lines will correspond. So we have 21 here. The only odd one is this. This is the excess one, which will be 500 resources or 600 if we keep it that way. So we want this to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in sequence. So say this is 1, that will, well, 2, that would line up with that one, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. So we need to make sure that once we've set up all of the blueprints, that all of the lines are going to the correct spaces. We now have 20 of our unpackager lines set and ready to go. We're now going to sort out the conveyors bringing the water across, and also while we're at it, I also want to set up some liquid buffers so that we can prep the system and get it running so that when we do have that limestone, which we'll be doing in the next episode, it can all just run as planned. So I've been going over the lines and we have a problem. You know how I said everything needed to go from 1 up to 21 in chronological order? Well, this side is more or less right, except for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 are on the right-hand side rather than the left-hand side. That isn't an issue. What is an issue is going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to D, C, A, B, G, F, E, J, I, H. Yes, I screwed up. You remember when I said, oh, we need to make sure that everything's in the right line so that everything is paired and chronological. This side, perfect. No issues. Wonderful. This side screwed me over. Remember the lack of space? Well, this is where all my problems began. So I traced all the lines back to their corresponding plants and realized all of this mess needs redoing. I'm hoping it's not that difficult to fix. But of course that does mean before we get started on testing the lines, which was what I was about to do as soon as I'd finished with all the piping, I'm actually going to have to rework all of this. So we're going to delete all of this. I'm going to spend another half an hour trying to work out what to do. At least it's only one side, you know. Silver lining and all. Okay, so it's not the cleanest fix, but I think I fixed it. I think this solves the whole issue by rerouting it. And that way we don't need to worry about rerouting anything up on that side. And that way we don't need to worry about any of these because these have been automatically turned into A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This is all fine, which means we can get started on sorting out the water, and we're going to do this by having some water buffers, and we're going to run 20 of these, so we need 10 in a line, and each one of these is going to take the water from one of those pipes. So I'm going to need to sort out the pipes as well. To make it slightly easier, I am using a pipe support blueprint, so this will make everything hopefully a whole lot easier for me. I'm going to be able to run the pipes across here. We're going to run all of these around to there, and then we'll get started on creating some empty canisters from the steel that we've been producing, well, here. And we now have all of the water lines set up. It's not my cleanest work, I'll be honest, but I've never been one to be good when it comes to piping. Thankfully, it's all underneath the floors, so we're not going to see it. And the plan is going to be to have the concrete facility, if we can fit all 200 odd refineries under here. So we're keeping this open for the time being. Oh, and I've also lit this section up just because I really want to see all the empty canisters running down here and all the water canisters heading up there, which is where we come to now. I have set up this temporary empty canister setup. I've already got a handful of empty canisters, and we're just going to jump down and start adding them to the line via a industrial buffer. And all I'm going to do is connect an industrial storage unit do it like that. We've got 2,500 empty canisters running onto that. And you can see they're filling up and they're sending items across that line. Now, for the time being, we're going to have to find out which buffer that's filling and then flush it so that the cycle continues. Anyway, I'm going to very quickly fill up on these and fill up a load of the lines. We'll probably check a handful at a time. And then I'm going to work on the decoration for this build, because although I like open world factories, and we're definitely going to do something like that there, maybe enclose bits of it, I want this to be closed off. You see all the blue canisters filled with water? That means this is running. I have checked everything for the last couple of hours, and we can go and set it up again just by flushing these. If we do this, actually I'm going to do this for all of them because I want to show you the shot at the bottom. Now, we don't have much time before all of this fills up again because all of these buffers are filled. But you can see they're all starting to turn on and run at 600 resources per minute. And if we drop down here, we have all the water. I'm really happy with how this is coming about. I'm definitely going to spend some more time decorating my world later on. We need to do decorating now, but the decorating that we're doing at the moment is just to make this world feel like a world, essentially. We want it to a reasonable state of decoration, and then once we're complete, we're gonna go to town on making everything even more decorated. So the first thing that we're gonna be doing is adding some walls all around. I'm also going to, I think, in this section, add just the curved beams. We're gonna take them all the way to the top. The other thing that I want to do, if we grab our concrete pillars, I'm gonna run these all the way across like so, and also all the way around the front of the build. In fact, around the whole build. As for the build itself, once we've got this skeleton set up, I do want to add color to this, and I think we're going to stick with the blue because it is a water facility. In fact, maybe we should just change all of the gray to this kind of blue. We don't want it all the same though, so perhaps we'll add a little bit of depth with our beams here. And grab these, run them across the bottom. Ooh, I like that blue. I also want to think a little bit ahead when it comes to getting up and down this build. So we'll have an elevator. So we will have a floor, which is the maintenance. We're going to light these up as well. We're also going to have a floor there. Probably about this level will be the floor to the refineries, but we don't need to worry about that just yet. And then I'd quite like to have maybe a glass foundation above all of this as well. My main concern is that it's going to look quite samey if we keep it all the same palette. So we do need to definitely switch to the darker blue that we have over here. But we'll have glass tones, we'll have the light color from our pillars. Another thing I guess we could do is have like a ridge across the top of here, and that will be like a sky window. Oh yeah, and then we can see the space elevator above us. So we're going to want something like an entrance here, and then probably another one about there. Let's go with pillars. Can we just, ooh yeah, we nudge it that far, because I'm thinking what we could do is maybe add a touch of light. There we go. Bring that down. So it's just an edge of light that we see. That's quite nice. Can we fit something in between there? Ooh. Yeah, wonderful. Right, so we're going to do the same again, but this time we're going to keep this black, have it glossy, and then we're going to give ourselves a background. Lovely. We can repeat that on this side as well. How is that for an entrance? Finally, if we grab ourselves these walls that I never use, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to lift it all the way up. We're just going to have a little tiny lip And I'm just going to nudge this all the way across and paint it blue. Problem is, it takes so much time. And what I really want to do is just add... Oh, we can step it from here. So we'll do that across the whole frame here. Then get that in the right position, which I think is there. That looks about right. We'll run this all the way across as our little sky light. And if I grab a wall and run the wall all the way across, if we add a little skirt around the bottom section, it's going to really focus the light that we have to the walkway. And we are now walled in. The last thing to do is the ceiling, and then we can look at the inside lighting. But this is looking pretty nice. The plan with this is to grab ourselves our walls here. From here, I will change this to metal to make it a little bit more industrial. Then we're going to have, we can go with a 1 meter concrete internal, and we can run this all the way across. Next, we're going to run with the ceiling pieces. I rarely use these actually, but we're going to sink them 0.5 meter in. So there's a little tiny edge there. And we're going to grab our metallic one. We're going to run that across. We'll repeat this on this side as well, followed by another concrete foundation. I'm going to do this for all of the pieces, and we can color this in as well. Maybe that's a, yeah, oh, I like that blue. Why have I not been using that? Alongside all of this, I think we also need to have, we grab these orange lines. We're going to run these all the way across this as well, and that'll be either side, and that should leave us with just the inner sections to work on. And here we are, the build is done. It doesn't look as outstanding as my normal builds, I'll admit. But the reason for that is it is essentially only half done, because the bottom section is going to be dedicated to producing the concrete. And so that's going to obviously add quite a bit to the decor. On top of the build, as you can see, it is clean. It is beautiful. I'm really happy with how this has turned out. We've also got the maintenance section, so we can drop down here with lighting and run all the way through as well. But it's a smaller build compared to what we've got planned, but it's really important that we have this set up. We're now able to produce 12,500 water per minute, ready for the next build, which will be concrete, just down here. Now, despite today's episode being quite a small build, really, I mean, 12,500 water isn't that much, but it does set the premise of the concrete facility, and that's going to be quite a lot of work. Even though we've done the majority of it, we need to get a ton of limestone here, and we've had this brilliant idea, whether it will work or not, of placing the train line for the concrete facility along where all these awesome sinks are, and we can light it up and have it as an open-sided train station. I think that would look amazing, and better yet, we could run that onto the lower section, which we've removed, but there's still a bit over there, and then take that back round to the steel facility and under there, and hopefully that would look pretty awesome. But that does mean that I don't want to do any more decoration in this area. Similar with the concrete facility, we're not decorating beneath it because I know that we're probably going to have to undo that in the next episode. So guys, if you got this far and you enjoyed it, please do hit the thumbs up. And if you really liked it, consider hyper-liking. That's a new thing, apparently. But we will see you in the next episode. If you're wondering what to watch next, why not check out our anniversary factory tour compilation, which is kicking off a new factory tour season. So I'll put a link to that now. Special thanks, as always, goes to all of our incredible supporters, most notably our Lunar Eclipse Patreons, the Firefless, Calamity, Ben, and Star, as well as our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Papa Snoozy. But until next time, as always, ciao for now.